Join me right now is Brave CF Flyweight contender, Sean Santella. Sean, appreciate the time, man. It's been a while. How has life been for you?
It's good, man. I got to enjoy the winter. We had some snow. I hit the mountains, went snowboarding. Took a trip out to Utah, so I really dug into snowboarding this year.
All right. Well, is that something that you've always been into since a young age?
I dabbled in it a little bit when I was younger, but I was never really consistent because when I started, I then started training. So I was kind of like on the mindset I was worried about getting injured because I just started snowboarding. And so I just, between training and dedicating myself to training, I never had time. So this year I was like, you know what, I don't care. I'm going out. I got a board, like I went a couple years ago twice, and then I didn't go. And this year I just made a promise to myself that I was going to make it out there. So, and I hit it hard. So
that's good to hear, man. Enjoying life, man. You got to enjoy life when you can, right?
Yes, sir. That's it.
Especially with how busy you are with coaching and teaching and actually being a fighter at the same time. How are you balancing all of that at once?
Honestly, I'm probably not. Mike gets mad at me all the time. My manager's always busting my chops, saying, make sure you have time for Sean. I don't have enough hours in a day for Sean.
Yeah.
A lot of my students and my mom and stuff just take up a lot of my time. So I don't mind it, I take my days when I can, but, I enjoy what I do. I love teaching. I love helping everybody out, so I can't complain.
Yeah, of course. If you love what you do, then there's nothing you can say about it. You know what I mean? You got to let yourself go and do what you love. Now, let's jump right into it, man. September 2020, the Flyweight Tournament, Brave CF 42. Before we actually get into the fight, how was the travel? How was the fight week leading up to the event?
Everything was good, no problems. We flew out. The flight to London, we had a connecting flight. The flight to London was empty. It's pretty much like go anywhere you want on the plane. And then we had a connecting flight in London. And then from London to Bahrain, it was packed. And it was the same way home. So it was about 13 hours travel, but I didn't mind, we were comfortable. It didn't really affect me at all,
You've traveled a few times before that, right? With cornering and stuff. So you're used to just like the empty airports and the small, I guess the limited amount of people on the airplanes and everything.
Yeah, there was more people, I would say, traveling in the U.S. than overseas. So when I went out to Vegas, the flights were a little more packed, like in December and even before that, a little before the September. The first flight since the pandemic, the first fight was with Sajara in Jacksonville. And I went to Baltimore first and then to Jacksonville. It was empty. Everything was empty. It's like a ghost airport, everything. And that's how it kind of felt going to London for this flight. But I was really surprised that from London to Bahrain, there wasn't an empty seat. So it was pretty crazy. So I figure that it'll probably be a little more packed now because people are starting to get back to a routine. People are getting vaccinated and stuff like that. So I'm preparing for a packed flight for the most part.
Definitely. Bahrain, was it different from how they're doing everything in the States?
No, not really. Everything was pretty much on lockdown. As soon as we got off the plane, they brought us into like a room. We got tested right away. We had to download an app on our phone to like track us in case we failed. If we tested positive for COVID, they wanted to be able to tell where we went, who we were around, and who we were interactive with. Of course, my phone wouldn't download the app, so they started freaking out. They downloaded my cornerman had it, so they were able to track us when we went to the mall when we weren't supposed to. But everything seemed to kind of be shut down. We were pretty much cut off from the rest of Bahrain except for the hotel that we stayed at, and we just weren't allowed to leave. If we needed anything, we had to let them know. That was up until the fight. After the fight was a different story. We found our way out with a lot of people, and it felt like back to normal, partying, drinking, and having a good time,
All right, before we get to the partying and the drinking and stuff and having a good time, let's talk about the fight. When you look at the fight round by round, the first two were scored in your favor, but the last round, two judges scored the round to Torres 10-8 round. What are your thoughts on that last round? Because the first two rounds seem very clear.
So I was a little disappointed. I don't agree with it. Obviously, I think that the one judge that ruled it in my favor, 29-28, I think it was, I think he had it right. I thought I won a unanimous decision. I don't think, no way, that last round was a close 10-8. I was never in damage. Yeah, he was in control, but I was still landing strikes. I was still throwing up submissions. The ref never warned me to, fight back or anything like that. So I was never rocked. He landed, more shots in that round, but the first two rounds I dominated. I think I had more of a criteria of a 10-8 first round than he had a 10-8 third round. It's just the judges are so big on striking. That's the only downfall is, I could have somebody's back for 4.5 minutes trying to strangle them and hit them, and I'll only get a 10-9. Meanwhile, my opponent didn't land one strike and was never in a position to even throw a strike. Yet, they could give a 10-8 round for, a couple body shots and control over anything when I'm never, in damage, I was never really at risk. So it was a little disappointing. I think, honestly, with there being no crowd and the commentating kind of talking about a 10-8 round, I think that kind of persuade them into doing it, because you can hear a needle drop in there, and everybody likes that Rocky story, the comeback story, so, I think it favored him. And, like I said, I definitely don't agree with it, but it is what it is. We're going to run it back. So, but I definitely think that everybody there, the only two people that thought that was a draw were those two judges. Not one person in Brave. I don't even think Torres knew deep down inside if he rewatched that, he probably feels, he's happy that it was a draw, and I'm disappointed that it was a draw. So that goes to tell you who you think the winner was, But, it is what it is. I knew I was going into hostile territory. That's like his home turf, so to speak. And I knew that I had to really go over and beyond. I either needed a finish or a clear-cut, decision, which I thought I had, honestly. Again, I definitely think I could have had a 10-8 first more than his 10-8 third. But yeah. It is what it is. I'm not going to dwell on it, and we got to move forward, and I'm excited to run it back,
when you talk to the officials there, like you said, a lot of them believe that you won the fight. Does that kind of help you move on quicker, or is it still man, that's a shitty situation I've been in. I won the fight, but I got to fight this dude again.
A little bit of both. I think the maturity and me having so many fights is it helped me move on, because I know I can't let it affect my training moving forward and stuff like that. So, I was sour for that night for the most part, after everybody's continuously telling me, hey, you definitely won, but, if I was a newbie and I didn't have the experience, I probably would have dragged on a lot longer, but with having so many fights, you can't let that stuff, it's just like a loss. Win, loss, draw, you have to kind of enjoy it or come to terms with it and move on, or else it's going to affect your next training camp, your career. It really depends on how mental you are and how you look at it. I guess that's a lot to do with the instructor and me too. Not everybody wins every fight, so when my students lose, I say, hey, listen, you got to move on. You learn from it. Let it affect you now. Let it be used as motivation to make you better, and that's it. You don't want it to define your career. So you got to just pick yourself up and move forward. That's it. That's the bottom line. So I'm a big believer in that, and I just think it's the maturity and being in the sport for so long that has helped me deal with that. But it does, it does suck, you know. Like, I know deep down inside that, you know, I should be moving on to the semifinals. And now, in order for me to get that belt, I got to actually fight one extra fight, you know, more than everybody else. So, not to mention, it also sucks only getting half your purse, but, you know, it is what it is.
Definitely, you have to take your own advice. Yeah, that comes in handy. You have a lot of experience in that, where you're in the corner and your fighter loses. It could be controversial. You have to go back to the back and give them that pep talk. And basically, you're doing it to yourself, right?
100%. Yep.
Yeah, man, that's a huge benefit for you. Now, since the fight, anything that you changed up with your training, or is it just all, the same?
No, I mean, it's pretty much the same, you know. I didn't feel like I had to go back and really change anything. I didn't think I showed everything I could in the fight, you know. So, you know, my grappling's always going to be there. That's obviously, there's no hiding that. So obviously I went back and worked more on striking and stuff like that. But I mean, I work everything. I love doing everything. So it was just a matter of tweaking a couple little things. Most people are probably talking about my conditioning and stuff in the third. That fight was a high-paced when it comes to grappling, with a lot of scrambles, a lot of static holds. So naturally, you're going to be tired because you can't really you can't really replay that. You can't practice so much for that if you're holding somebody for 4.5 minutes. Like, it's just you can add stuff into strength and conditioning. You can try to do it in training, but in the end, I mean, something like that is just, it's gonna happen. But like I said, with me, it's just more about getting in there and letting my hands go, letting my striking go, and that's what I'm looking forward to in this fight.
Anything surprised you about Torres? Like, was he stronger than expected? Was he more scoringly than expected? What did you see? Anything?
No, it's everything that I expected, man. Everybody kept saying, "Oh, it's a striker versus grappler," but he actually has a higher credential grappling than I do. He wrestled in college. I didn't even go to college, let alone wrestle in college. So he's been doing martial arts probably longer than I have. So, yeah, he favors the striking, but, he's definitely up there with grappling. So, a lot of people just kept saying that, and those are the people I just don't think really understood or really knew who Torres was, just because he likes to bang. So, I knew exactly what he was going to bring to the table, and every fight that he fights, it's the same. He's got a great pace. He's got a good chin, and he swings. He's got good takedown defense, good throws. There was nothing that really surprised me. It was more so me not being able to finish when I got into dominant positions in the leg lock and having his back. And then in that third round, I was just, my body was kind of just shot from all those static holds. And that was it, I still don't think that that he did enough to make it a draw in that third, I was still fighting back. Everything was still kind of this, still there. I was never out of it. So I think that's the thing that frustrated me the most. But yeah, there's nothing really to change for this fight. I'm going to continue doing the same thing that I've been doing and training with the best guys that I have, and just keep going forward.
You mentioned the hands earlier. Is that what will be the difference maker, do you think, in this rematch?
Yeah, I think so. I think just my striking altogether, from the looks of it, which I don't blame people think I don't have any striking, because sometimes it shows up and sometimes it doesn't, so it's kind of like you don't know what you're going to get. You're going to get a high-paced match, and you got to worry about my grappling, and if my striking decides to pop its head out that day, then that's something that you got to worry about. Torres didn't really have to worry about that. We weren't on the feet that much except for in the third round, but it's there, so if at any point, regardless who I fight, they don't respect that, then, we'll see.
There's, when you rewatch the fight and you look at the positions that you were in on the ground, you must see something there, right? Like, there's like when you should have went left, but you went right, and now you could kind of fix that in the rematch when you get in there and get into the same positions. That kind of does that excite you, man? Like, I'm getting my second chance to go in there and strangle this guy.
Yeah, definitely. Like I said, I think it was more of missed opportunities from my end. And those are things I'm always fixing. I hold myself to a very high standard when it comes to that. And I personally think if I get into those dominating positions, I need to have 100% finish rate.
Mm.
That's what I expect from myself. And I just wasn't able to do it that night. So, obviously I went back to the drawing board, worked with my coaches and fix some stuff, and also give other options too. I'm very big on having a lot of options, like not just being able to go to one thing or being a one-trick pony. So sometimes I get a little thick-headed and I just want to strangle somebody so bad, but there's other options there. So just making sure that I'm being smart and exploring those other options when I'm there to set something else up. And that's it. But it's been like that kind of for the second half of my career. A lot of guys were going out there just to not lose, not to get finished, So I dealt with a lot of people that were in that position where I had to go back and start tweaking some things. And I did the same thing with this fight. And I do it after a win, too. It's not just a loss or a draw. You could always improve on something. It doesn't matter. It could be anything. Unless you go out there and have a one-punch knockout or a flying knee right off the bell, there's always something that you can fix,
Maybe we might see a flying knee off the bell, right? I don't know. Who knows?
Yeah, could be, yeah.
If you could call your shot, what do you see?
I'm gonna say a rear naked choke.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think if I get to his back this time, I think it'll be a little different.
All right. I got a couple other questions. It doesn't have to do with anything with the fight, but it has to do with MMA. Knees to a grounded opponent. We saw it last weekend in a title fight. It was history. We saw history happen. No fighter has ever lost their title to a DQ in the UFC. Should knees to a grounded opponent be legal? What are your thoughts on that?
I'm kind of on the fence. I wouldn't mind using them. Obviously I'm a grappler, so it would definitely be fun being able to knee someone in the face in certain positions. I don't think it would really affect me, especially with my style, just because I'm a very damage-controlled grappler for the most part, So I don't think I leave openings for somebody to do that to me, so I don't think that really would change. I think maybe in the beginning of my career, it would have made a difference. But, I'm kind of on the fence with it. The thing is, different promotions have different rules, and you have to understand it and you have to follow it. Yan knew the rules. His coaches were telling him, well, one of the coaches was saying yes, the other was saying no. You have to know. You're fighting for a world title on the biggest stage. That's your own fault, and you deserve to lose the belt. Doesn't matter if you were winning the fight before that. That's a kind of like you cheated. I mean, you broke the rules. It's just like doing steroids. You got caught, you broke the rules, and it changed the outcome of a fight. And that's what happens. So I'm sure he'll get the rematch, and they're not going to change the rules. You know what I'm saying? I don't see that changing anytime soon. In the United States, you're never going to be able to knee. You know what I'm saying? We fight hard enough as it is, like cockfighting, as everybody says, and people have a hard time seeing it. Now you're going to start kneeing people in the face on the ground. I don't see that ever changing, But I would be excited to do it one day if I was to, fight in a promotion that allowed it. I'd definitely be for it.
Of course, man. And the calf kicks, there's people that are of the thought of we should get rid of those. Those are too dangerous for the sport. What do you think?
No, I mean, I guess, they could be dangerous. One of my teammates actually had to have surgery, and he got rushed to the hospital, and his legs swelled up. I forget, Paul Felder had the same issue too. Where your leg swells up so bad you have to actually cut it to release the pressure. Yeah. And it literally looked like he was bit by a shark, and it took a chunk out of his calf. And it's because he got hit with some leg kicks. And but that's just the name of the sport. If you start doing that, it's almost like football, where now you can't hit the quarterback or a defenseless list. Then you start taking the fun out of it, and then it's well, what are you really watching? So I think right now they do their best to protect the fighters for safety. To eliminate calf kicks, I think it would be stupid. It's not, I don't see it, killing anybody or where kneeing a downed opponent could be a little different, where you crack the skull open and you can cause some serious, harm. But then again, also, I'm not a doctor. I guess, maybe if that swelled up to your calf, it could cause a clot and then you could die and stuff like that. But I don't think it's as severe as, cracking your skull open and head trauma later on. I think it's a lower percentage, injury of it causing issues later on down the line, But, I enjoy it. I've gotten kicked in the calf a lot, in some fights and in training and stuff like that. So, it's definitely just another thing that you got to prepare for or add to your arsenal.
Yeah, for sure. Well, March 25th, man, Brave CF 49 main event.
Yeah, I appreciate it, man. Thank you so much.